Hey, what's up? I'm Nate,
And I'm Colin.
and this is Pew Pew time.
Pew pew pew
All right.
pew.
So you went to Galaxy's Edge again, right?
Yeah, I went last weekend with some buddies, and we did the cantina. I try to do the cantina every time I go. Uh, I love
It's
beer,
Oga's
so
Cantina,
they
right?
have Ogas. You know, just a little tidbit or a little side note on specifically the cantina, Oga's cantina. I feel like they had an opportunity to make it feel more like you can just walk in and go up to the bar and grab. They definitely have the space for it. There's a lot of emptiness in the land still.
Yeah.
Um, and they built one Olga's Cantina. It's super tiny. And the demand is going to be high for it, right? You have a lot of Disney adults, Star Wars fans who drink, and it's the only place, at least in California, where you can get alcohol, on Disneyland property. Otherwise, you have to go to like California Adventure, and you make this tiny square footage cantina, and so it just gets. Luckily, it's gotten more mellow, so you can do walk up reservations, and you can kind of mimic the feeling of like walking into a cantina, just like just arrived on the planet. But I just felt like that was a missed opportunity on their end to not distribute more. I mean, you have more cantinas, right? I mean, at
Yeah.
least two or
Yeah.
three. They have
Well, I'm
they had
telling
the
you,
room for it.
it's funny you mentioned that. I've had the same idea. We went with my family here about a year ago to Disney World, right? Which I kind of think you can drink all over the place. But I
Yeah,
guess I can't say
you
that for
can
sure.
no. In Florida, you can. It has something to do with Disneyland being like the original. It's like Walt's
Something
thing, and
about
so they want to
Walt's
like
issue.
preserve
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, but they I thought the same thing. We did 2 days there, and like I think we didn't get into Oga's Cantina until the second day. I could be wrong. I might have it backwards, but we we went through the whole thing, and you got to like reserve it online, and like there are only so many slots, and you got to do it in a certain amount of time. It's like they make it kind of difficult, and I should say they make it that way. It's high demand. It's very busy, right? So I understand. I mean, like it can't be perfect, but like you said, it was just real pain to get in. And then when we got in there as a group, and we got like standing room, like only, there was no seating for us. We stood around like a tall table, and it's like, we've been walking around for 2 days straight, like our legs are sore, our feet hurt, and we went in like we were, I don't know, bounding is really the right word. It was almost cosplay type stuff, but we all dressed like in universe, and so we're all wearing like costume stuff, and we got bags hanging off of us and stuff, and like we just had to stand around. We ordered our drinks and whatever, and I mean it was cool. The ambiance was cool and everything, but it absolutely was the sort of disappointing experience you get when it's like too many people are jammed in there at the same time. I thought the same thing. Like, why not have two or three cantinas? Name them something different. Give them a little bit of different like flavor. Give them drinks that you can only get there. You know what I mean? Draw people to one and the other, and make them move around and whatever. Make this more of an experience at each place. I don't know. I thought the same thing,
Yeah,
man. But
more of
still a
a
lot of fun to
planet you
go.
visit. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
All right. So you also got something, right?
I did. Yeah. Does my mic sound good right now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Some
I
technical
did. Yeah.
difficulties.
A little bit of technical difficulties, but growing pains. Um, yeah, I realized last weekend, or my friends made me realize last weekend that I don't currently own a lightsaber, and can't be doing a Star Wars podcast without owning a lightsaber. And I'm reserving the moment to build my own with my brothers, and if you come out here, we'll all go build a lightsaber. So I didn't want to do that. So I got this one. Oops.
That is, I mean, I know this is your favorite, but it's also like my favorite hilt. There's just like all the lightsabers, like it's always been this one for me.
Yeah, Luke's is just the Return of the Jedi. Luke is so amazing, and I'm so thankful we got to see him again in Mando season 1 or 2. Sorry.
Right.
But with these types of blades, I don't think the build your own does this, but because these are like trying to be replicas, they have exchangeable tops, so you can unscrew it, and if you want to put the blade in, you put in like the thicker piece, and if you want it to just be a display, you put in the thinner piece that I'm assuming is more accurate to the the real one.
That narrow neck that's like sort of classic Luke's lightsaber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I got mine right here. But yeah, like it's one huge chunk down the middle, you know? So there's no way you could make it narrow like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Man, I love how your
so
sound,
iconic.
your startup is different.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Probably Luke's has. Of course, I thought that. So I think that the startup noises are related to the crystals, right? And somewhere up here, I've got the blue crystal too, because I've always been similar to you. I've always been a Luke from Return of the Jedi lightsaber guy. Like it's always been my favorite one. So rather than just getting like one, I got blue and green this time when I went. I got the extra one, but like they sound different when you put the different crystal in. Like it sounds more like Obi-Wan Kenobi's, and then it sounds more like Luke's.
Mm.
But
wait, so play this one real quick.
It doesn't sound. All right, ready?
Yeah.
Like that sounds like Luke's. Doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Or do yours?
All right, now.
It's different, man. It is different. You're right.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I think that's probably a higher quality like speaker.
I don't know.
Probably, but I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Well,
I think
we'll find out one day, man.
Round 3. Round 3.
All right, man. So you got any more anecdotes from Galaxy's Edge you want to share, or should we jump in?
No, I was basically just gonna wrap up saying this is my first like kind of replica lightsaber, and man, it just feels so good when you hold it. I mean, it's kind of one of those things that you hold it. I guess I could try to learn like moves and stuff, but I mean, I don't know. But I just wish I hope we get to a time where we can have this type of hilt build, but then the blade is retractable as well. I know they've made one, but I just hope in our lifetime they can like productionize that.
Yeah. I think the word you're looking for is produce, but we'll move on. So, honestly,
you can cut that out, right?
Yeah, we'll cut that. I might cut that. But I really sort of went back and forth for a minute over whether or not to buy the lightsaber. I always thought I always knew I was going to at some point, because I knew that like someday I'll go to Galaxy's Edge and I'll spend all this money. And I just knew that it's like, if I'm going to do this, I need to do the lightsaber. I got to do the whole thing. I did the droid, I did the lightsaber. Really fun experience. But I was always afraid that I was going to regret spending that money. And to be honest, man, every time, like there will be some days I'll get home after work. Bree won't be home yet, and I'll pick up the thing and I'll turn it on and I'll swing it around, and I'm like, I feel like I felt when I was a kid and I was playing with a toy lightsaber. Like it still feels that cool. Like I look like an idiot. I don't care, man. It is so much fun, and I like one of the few like very expensive purchases that I probably won't ever regret. It's been so much fun.
That's awesome. All right, should we talk about Mando?
Yeah.
Or should I say Mandor?
I don't think
that's the joke. That's okay.
Yeah.
That's everyone's. It's an online joke. I don't know I didn't know if you saw it yet.
But for real? I thought you were just being.
No, I mean I've seen it I saw it a few places today, but yeah, I mean it's. I know. I mean, like it feels like an Andor, or felt like an Andor episode.
Yeah, this episode did, man. That's funny. I hadn't thought about it, but you're absolutely right. This one,
yeah,
it felt a little more like administration and people going from building to building and these wide shots. It did feel more like that.
Man, I'm curious what you're like. Just before we dive into the what happens, like,
yeah,
I love this episode so much, and I think it's because I loved Andor. I loved the scenes when he's captured on the ship, or in the I forget what
prison facility
station. Yeah, the prison facility. Because you're seeing a side of the Empire that you don't really see much in the films, the main films.
Yeah.
And I felt like we just got more of that in this, and I really loved this episode.
Sorry. Yeah, I'll say this. It wasn't the episode I was expecting. I wouldn't say I didn't like it. But it was a little like watching Book of Boba Fett and then having it be like a whole episode or two that didn't have anything to do with Boba Fett, that were all, like the Mandalorian, right? It felt like, okay, so this is a sub story, and they laid a lot of ground for whatever's happening with Dr. Pershing, right? We'll get to that.
Well, but I think, yeah.
I'll say my big shock was that they didn't even really take a moment to digest the characters, to digest what happened, right? Now, apparently Din didn't see the mythosaur down there, right? And I've been sort of unclear, and I've seen a couple different theories on whether Mando fell or whether he got pulled in. I assumed he'd gotten pulled in, but apparently they're saying that he fell. Like he just took a step.
Well, that's what he said.
Just a hole. Yeah. So I had sort of assumed that the mythosaur pulled him down and just left him there, But anyway,
I think that's a fair assumption. I mean, I know that maybe the armor's heavy that you just sink right down, but I don't know. That seems
he took his
stretch.
jetpack off, right? But
yeah,
I still they come to the surface and they're coughing and stuff, like they're coughing up water. I can't ask too many questions. Yeah. This is the delicate balance that science fiction has to do between realism and fantasy, right? You have to at some point accept okay, well, things aren't always going to make sense because this isn't Earth and this isn't 2023 and whatever. So
yeah.
But yeah, man. All right, let's talk. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, I mean, the opening scene, it picks up where episode 2 left off, and they kind of have this. We kind of just alluded to it, but they, Bo kind of says hey, do you see anything, whatever, and Mando obviously didn't. But it was real interesting. I mean, I kind of makes sense now seeing it, but I was kind of hoping she was going to mention it.
Yeah,
but she doesn't. She just kind of is just oh, no, okay, just making sure.
Yeah, I think it'll pay off in time. I think that it's it'll be a later on, she'll be no, I saw it there and whatever, and everybody's going to lose their minds, Man, so that's the stuff I'm really interested to talk about.
Yeah, I think real quick on just her not saying that she saw it. I think she's still very power-minded, power-driven. And so I think part of her thinks that she could potentially have, maybe captured herself or something, because it's the most powerful thing in their religion, probably even more so, obviously more than the Darksaber. So I think she's kind of doesn't want to give the secret away until she's kind of figured out what she wants to do with it first.
Yeah, no, and I mean, it's you sort of start down an interesting path there that, maybe she doesn't want to admit that it was there because there's some, prophecy about someone taming the mythosaur, We already know that she's sort of loose on her religious interests anymore. I mean, she's not that into it. So maybe she just doesn't want to give any of these religious zealots anything, whatever. But I also think I have a growing theory that she's becoming a bit of a believer in Din as the leader. You can see little by little her appreciation for him, and I don't know. I could see this thing becoming her being his right hand man, and helping him essentially take the new throne of Mandalore someday or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I also, they might throw a curveball and she might just up and try to take it from him at the end of the season. I don't know. I should say the Darksaber, that is.
I kind of see that happening.
Yeah.
So I see in your notes, which I'm super excited to talk about, which is, okay, they leave Mandalore and they go back to Bo's planet, which is, I forget the name of.
I can't remember.
You probably know it.
No, I don't remember it. Yeah, it's the other one in the system with Mandalore and whatever, the moon.
Just Google it.
Oh my gosh.
Not you, the audience. Just Google it.
That's fine. You guys can know. Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're going back to her planet,
scene.
and
Go ahead.
yeah, and they get attacked. I'm sorry, I watched this episode this morning, but I kind of forget when they get attacked. Are they on her planet?
I think that they're on their way back to her planet in her
Who's
ship.
in space?
Yeah.
No, but
they were almost
yes,
back to her planet because she has to drop them off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the date was
cool,
over.
Man. Yeah. Yeah, quick, gotta be back by midnight. My dad's gonna be angry. Yeah, man. So I mean, like you talked about this. I guess I'll let you talk when you get to the point that you wanted to make there. But like, there's some sweet. I don't know. What it reminded me of is the Death Star trench and the flying inside the Death Star in Return of the Jedi, and Han, navigating through the asteroid field and that sort of thing in the Falcon. Like that's what what it felt like with Bo-Katan, like flying in between, in these little canyons and stuff, trying to avoid these TIE interceptors. Which one of my notes is like, I don't think we've seen TIE interceptors since Return of the Jedi. Anyway,
I don't think so either.
And they're, if I'm remembering correctly, they're the fastest of the TIE fighters, Yeah. But of course, Din's ship, the N1 Starfighter, is like crazy fast. This like weird
it's
like
so
hot
cool.
rod thing that they do to it. But anyway, you go and take it from here.
Yeah, so they're trying to fight off some of the TIE interceptors in just Bo's ship, but they're obviously realizing how much faster and they are than her ship. And there was there was probably like 5, 6, 7.
Right off the bat, there were a few, yeah.
Yeah, and they obviously had no clue where they came from, and then they figured out a way for Din to drop to a ship, which was like, man, that'd be so scary, just dropping from midair. But yeah, so Din gets into his ship, and this is the part where I felt like, I mean, I'm sure we were getting shots before, but I really love the shots in his N1 fighter, and specifically when he gets to his ship and there's like an interceptor coming to shoot at him, and within 5 seconds, he's just like straight vertical up, like from flat to up. And I just, as a viewer watching this, and obviously I've only flown like commercial planes, and sometimes you can feel a little bit of it, but I can just only imagine that G-force going straight up.
Yeah.
And like, then he gets to the top and then zero gravities himself straight back down towards the interceptor, and obviously like shoots it and it destroys it. But that whole scene, and I feel like there was more of these little close-ups of him in the ship where you can just feel the power of the ship and what he's probably, or what you would imagine it feels like if you were, in the ship piloting it.
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, and that's, I think, one of the things that historically Star Wars at least used to do really well. That's sort of like making you feel like you're in the action, and they do certain things visually and with the audio that make you feel like the sort of like thrust of it and the the turns and everything. Like that stuff is so cool. I love that. But it's funny, you reminded me. I think Din did that move where he flew straight up and then like just dropped straight back down. I think he did that in the Razor Crest once, and I can't remember if it was season 1 or season 2. But I kind of think he did that when like somebody was chasing him or something. I don't know.
He might have. I just think it looked. I think yeah, I'm sure he did, but yeah, I love the N1 fighter.
The slight profile. Yeah, I know, man. Well, you're the prequel generation too. I think it's cool. I do think it's cool. I think it's completely impractical as a bounty hunter ship, but it's super cool. No doubt. All right, so that chase was like, that was fun, man. I feel like this episode was worth it just for that chase and seeing her. I don't remember what the Mandalorian ship is, but I also don't know. I feel like I saw somebody online claiming that this is the same ship that was Darth Maul's at one point, but I think it's just that those Mandalorian, like, whatever, the ships all had the same sort of look to them. But I love that last one, she like one of the wings comes up and she does this like super fast like turn around and just shoots it down. I love that. That was cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to jump around here just for a second.
Okay.
But where did all those TIE fighters come from, right? They made a comment at one point. And like I said the same thing to Bree just before it happened. I was like, where are all these TIE fighters coming from? Like, you know, TIE fighters were these like, I mean, like they're sort of elite fighters. Like they're super fast. That like that was their whole thing, was being, you know, the fastest of the fighters, whatever. So my impression is that the Empire, what's left of the Empire, is kind of on its last leg. There aren't a lot of, you know, supplies, provisions, you know, equipment around. So it hardly makes a lot of sense to me that there would be so many, you know, of these interceptors anywhere. Which leads me to wonder, are they introducing a new bad guy? Was this, you know, Moff Gideon, who like we got another little tidbit about later on, but
yeah,
I'm wondering, man.
Well, yeah,
like there's some foreshadowing happening with that.
There definitely is, and I think you really realize where they came from when you see that another huge fleet bomb her home. They destroyed her castle.
The TIE bombers and stuff too, yeah, which I think is also this like the first time we've seen him in. I mean, I assume there was some Return of the Jedi, definitely in Empire. But yeah,
and there was a ton. There was so, I mean, at this point, 2030, and to the point where like Din was like, "We got to get out of here. We can't."
Yeah.
So it's like this feels deliberate. This feels deliberate, and that's the part where I'm like, "There's something going on." There's definitely foreshadowing, like you mentioned.
So she mentioned like she's ticked off a lot of these like warlords and stuff. She's always poking at them and tearing them down and stuff. So that could be what's happening. I've always got the Thrawn question floating around in the back of my mind.
Yeah,
if he's returned,
that's in my head too,
and whatever.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how much they'll lean into that. I think that Ahsoka is going to deal with that in the show.
Yeah.
But
well, there was also rumors that we're going to get like an Ahsoka episode maybe in the next one or two. I don't know. So maybe Thrawn is feasible to be introduced as a character.
Yeah, who knows? Bree was asking me today if I thought that the Purrgil, you know, that we saw in the first episode, if that was implying that we'll see Ezra and everybody from Rebels, and I was like,
oh, that'd be so cool.
It would be kind of cool. I don't know, man. I really feel like probably that kind of reveal should be left to the show that it's going to be about. It's going to be about that, I should say. I think it makes more sense for that to be an Ahsoka thing, you know? I enjoy Mando a lot, but I think it was a little bit weird and kind of jarring that they decided to do the reunion with Grogu in Mando on a completely different show. And then they had to sort of recap what happened anyway in the early, you know, in the beginning of Mando. So I don't know. I don't know how much it makes sense to mix them too much, but these little like guest appearances are kind of cool. And so we'll see.
So basically, I mean, did you want to talk any more about the, you know, after her castle gets pretty much blown up?
Well, I did. I don't know. I don't know a lot about the castle. When they go flying over and Din for the first time says to Grogu, like, this is a Mandalorian castle, you know, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because I don't remember seeing any castles, like quote unquote castles on Mandalore in the Clone Wars or in Rebels or anything like that. And really that's where we get most of our information about the Mandalorian. So it's possible these things existed, whatever. But it's kind of in the middle of nowhere on Concordia, which is the moon. It's like in the country somewhere, you know. So I didn't know whether this was like, is this where she's lived for a long time? Or is this just something that like she built? Or is this like, you know, an ancient like, you know, ruins of some ancient Mandalorian, you know, castle, temple, something? Or we don't know much about it. So it being bombed and Bo-Katan being angry was kind of like, yeah, well, I guess it's your home, but like, I don't know enough to really like, you know, empathize with her exactly. I wish we knew more about it, but I did immediately go, why does her castle not have some sort of air defenses? You're a Mandalorian, like warfare is your thing, you know. I was like, you can't have some of those like, you know, the Death Star turrets that are shooting, you know, I'm like quad cannons and stuff.
Have
like,
those
why would
planted on the perimeter?
Yeah. Well, I honestly like that. Just seems so natural to me that Thai bombers could
Yeah.
just come in there and drop bombs and like oh yeah, I was out to get milk and my home is gone now. It's like that just seems silly to me. But she
Yeah.
did like leave in a hurry to go save Din, so who knows? Maybe she just forgot to turn on the Brink security switch. Anyway, that's all I got for the castle. We can move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the part that caught you mentioned this, it caught you by surprise, but it also caught me by surprise. Is it immediately cut to Coruscant, and kind of focusing on. I think the first shot is the Opera House, or like leading up to the Opera House. It's Dr. Pershing giving a speech.
Is it the Opera House?
It's on Coruscant. I thought it was like the one from the. That's why I wrote it down in my notes. I was like, this is some heavy prequel stuff. I got real
You could be
stoked.
right. I didn't catch it. If that's what it is, man, that's crazy. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it is.
Oh, did you ever hear the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Nate, that's a Lord of the Rings quote.
It's a story that the Jedi won't touch you. Anyway, let's move on.
Nice.
Is it Plagueis or Plagueis? I can never remember. It's Plagueis, isn't it?
Plagueis, I think. Yeah.
Nerds. Talking to myself here too. Yeah, that's super cool. I didn't think about that at all, man.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely looked like it. But anyways, it's a shot inside an opera house, and he's basically talking about his work.
I'm sorry, I gotta stop you. You're being staticky again. All right, well, Colin just had some technical difficulties again. He's having some trouble with his microphone. But in the meantime, he let me know that productionize is in fact a word. So while it is a useless word, and you could have just said produce, you weren't entirely incorrect. I'll give you that.
Thank you.
My snide remark.
My 7th grade English degree really is paying off right now.
All right, where were we? We were talking about the castle and all that. We'd moved on from that, right?
Yeah, we were at Dr. Pershing giving a speech about his recent work of cloning.
In the Opera House.
Yep.
Yeah, man, that was something. He went so far as to finally mention out loud the Kaminoans. A detail that you called very early on, the patches on his uniform, right?
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, go ahead if you got a thought.
No, at first I feel like they've been doing this a lot lately with these episodes, but I actually thought for a second that it was a flashback.
Yeah, that would have been
because we haven't seen him in a while, Dr. Pershing. And so he was talking about his work, and I figured if he's captured, he's probably not talking about his work. But anyways, I think after that, he gets into like some sort of like commuter ship to go back to like wherever he lives. But I don't know if you noticed this, and maybe we've seen this before, but like the droid pilot driving the thing looked directly out of like the old Ralph McQuarrie C-3PO designs, like one to one.
It didn't occur to me, but I bet you're right. That it's that early Anthony Daniels, who played C-3PO, talked. I've seen interviews where he talked about how this, I think it was Ralph McQuarrie painting of him, of an early version of C-3PO, like reaching out toward him, is what inspired him to take the role. Like he said, like, I have to help bring this guy's voice to whatever. It was interesting. And I bet that's what you're talking about. It was that guy. It was very like, Metropolis, very like, 19, 30s to 60s robots, the sort of like chrome and like weird, smooth faces and that sort of thing.
I wish we could show the photo.
Yeah, I know. Well, we got to look into it. That's kind of on my invisible list to get done, is like look into what we're allowed to show without, infringing on copyright and trademark. So, but that's a cool detail to catch, man. That's a fun one I hadn't thought about. I was a little uncomfortable with the way it turned its head around all the way.
Yeah,
apparently was Dr. Pershing. He was kind of like, what's the road, man?
That was creepy.
Remind me of Dumb and Dumber. There's really nothing to worry about, Mary. He's driving the limo and he's talking to her in the back seat. Yeah,
it's a great
that was a funny moment. But this thing with Dr. Pershing and later, I wrote her name down, Elia Kane, who I didn't know her name previously, who was one of Gideon's right-hand men or right-hand people. This whole thing was like a whole weird new chapter that I had never heard anything about. This sort of rehabilitation program, what they call it, the Amnesty something or other.
Yeah,
Amnesty program. It's kind of cool. Like I thought, like, yeah, I mean, like that's very believable that like you want to sort of rehabilitate these people, and I mean, not to draw too specific of a comparison to Nazi scientists coming over and being utilized after World War II or captured and being promised amnesty, and not being held, for their various war crimes and that sort of thing. But like it was kind of cool. I was like, hey, this is cool. Like I love the idea of like, because you get a whole empire full of people who worked for the empire. It's like, are you going to throw them all in prison, or are you going to kind of say like, let's find a way to work together and be better going forward. I dig it.
Right, because I mean, there's good scientists and good work. I'm assuming there's a lot of talented folks in the empire that you'd probably want to use to your agenda, your advantage.
Absolutely, and I'm sure that's sort of what I'm describing is a little more idealistic. Just sort of this. Let's all build a better world together. But you're right. I mean, from a government perspective, it's like this is a workforce that we need to utilize. And said scientists.
Yeah, I do want to.
That all have something to share.
I do want to get into the New Republic later. I have a lot of thoughts there.
Yeah. We should dig into it at some point. I imagine we'll learn a great deal more about it now with the storyline happening.
Yeah.
But so I'm trying to look at your notes now.
Real quick, because we were talking about the amnesty program. We first get kind of the group that carries throughout the rest of the show when he gets off that transporter with the owl turning head droid and he's walking to his room or whatever, and there was just 4 other people sitting around like a picnic table drinking space picnic table, and they're drinking some drink that can you get that in the park? I can't remember, but it's like this cool white drink.
It's like it's just sort of cloudy. Was it bubbly? I don't think it was bubbly. It just looked like a cloudy. It looked like soap. It was only like what it looked like.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was alcoholic in the show.
Excuse me. Yeah, no, I imagine whatever the version of alcohol is that they have in Star Wars.
Yeah.
It looked like grapefruit juice or something like that. But who knows what it was. But I'm always intrigued by food and drink that shows up in these shows and movies. Like, it's kind of fun to me. I love that stuff.
Well, I wanted to chat about that because the biscuits was a big part of it. So anyways, they're talking about, they're on this picnic table and they're kind of, they're all using their names still, which I thought was really interesting because I feel like if you're trying to rehabilitate folks, you'd probably want to give them a more personal name, but they're still using their numbers. I
understand that. Is that what it is? Is it their imperial designation? It's not.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Excuse me. It's not something.
It was their imperial numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But they're all chatting and they all came from the Empire, and so it was cool just seeing them talk and kind of collaborate in this new setting where it's like less harsh. In theory, right? Like it's supposed to be like more, freedom or whatever, graceful, if you will. And they're kind of I forget what the guy says, but he's like, well, what do you miss? Like, obviously it's all bad and we shouldn't do this.
Empire,
but what do you guys miss the most?
Yeah. I mean, that'd be the thing, I mean, even prison probably has some things that later on people go, like, oh yeah, well, like it was nice to have time to work out. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be something that's
Right.
positive. Not that you want that to come back, obviously, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that
That's
most experiences, even the unpleasant ones, have things that you remember and think like, yeah, that was a highlight.
that's a good point.
I'm going to get a
But yeah,
lot of
so
hate now from people who've been in prison. I am not saying that you
yeah.
went through anything easy. All right, I'm not going there. Yeah, no, I thought that was a fun touch. The like, yeah, what do you miss? Because clearly there were some benefits,
Well,
and
it
he
just
said, what is it? He says, what color are the biscuits?
I think they're just beige, right?
Yeah, well, he called them yellow. I think it was
Oh, did
one
he?
of
Okay.
one of the others. One of the others said like, oh, I like the red ones.
Oh, that's right. They remember that. But it's cool seeing that kind of. I think those types of scenes get dismissed because they're kind of, I don't want to say filler, but they're definitely more transition scenes. But man, that painted so much of like glimpses of like what it's actually like to be in the Empire,
Right.
and like working for them. Like it's like a job, it's a company. Uh, I don't know. I just appreciate those little details. But yeah, basically, Dr. Pershing was pretty much saying like, "Oh, I miss the biscuits," um, which you mentioned you love seeing these little snacks, and there's more snacks that kind of come in, like the little popsicles that they're licking when they're
Yeah.
walking around. But like, that's the thing. That's another Star Wars thing too. These little like quirky, almost like, uh, you know, um, astronaut food. And it's
Yeah.
like those little things. I love that stuff, and like I hope that makes it to the parks or where you can buy it
Yeah.
somewhere in the world. But
I
even
know.
in the
Every time I
Force
see something,
Awakens,
I'm like,
when
I'll eat that at Galaxy's Edge someday. Yeah.
yeah, and even like the Force Awakens, when Rey gets her rations and then she goes back to her, where she lives in the AT-AT, and she like boils up the little bread and stuff from this
Yeah.
little green gel. It's like I love those little moments
That is
of
so
like
cool.
these are
Yeah.
snacks in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, they didn't do a lot of eating in the original trilogy, right? And even in
Well, they did blue
because even
milk.
in the prequels they did a little bit. Yeah, they did. They had blue milk. There's the little like sausage or egg roll or whatever that Yoda tries to eat out of Luke's like ration,
Yeah, that's a good one.
toolbox. Uh, but like, oh, and at one point in Empire, um, Vader, asks everyone to join him for dinner or whatever, right? Like he's got a big table
Oh,
set. So
yeah.
like clearly we know people eat in Star Wars, but like there hasn't always been a lot of detail to it. And that's something they're doing more of in the Disney era. And I mean, you talked about Ray's little puff thing, and I've always wanted to eat that. And I think I saw
Oh, I'm sure
somewhere
it tastes like
when that
crap.
first released that was a real. Well, yeah, I saw that somewhere that was a real thing that you could make and eat, and I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta have it. I've yet to find it, but I think that it's a great way. Again, like I'm sort of a traditionalist, especially with something like Star Wars, and it's not that I'm afraid of change or new things exactly, but I want those things to come in a natural way out of what already exists, right? So, um, I think that this is one the food and the little details like that. As long as they're not too us like, as long as they're not too like, middle class America, whatever, like I appreciate that they're putting those details in to remind us that they sat around and they ate and they talked a little bit at that time, and I think they ate a little
As
bit
long
at
as
the
it's
end when we're
not,
sitting around the fire.
as long as it's not 10-piece chicken nuggets, then we're fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Grogu's little cookies that he stole from the other kid in whatever season 2, like those are just they're macarons, they're just the little like cookies. Like I love those things. They look a little bit alien, but like that was one where I was like, try a little harder, guys. Like I recognize that. Come on,
They
even the
definitely
popsicles,
tried
at least they
harder.
glowed. Yeah,
Yeah, those were cool. Also, they didn't look appetizing. They looked kind of plasticky.
yeah. Well, it was weird. Yeah,
We'll
it
see.
didn't look like they're getting any food off of it. They looked like they were just like sucking on a popsicle shaped like piece of plastic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's a stupid thing to get hung up on.
But let's talk about the one of the characters in that group. unless you wanted
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Well,
You
I
wanna
just want to bring up real quick. That they brought up something that we'd been wondering, which was what happened to Moff Gideon. Did he make it? Like, is he in prison
Yeah.
now? Has he been executed or anything? And they sort of hinted that he either escaped or, like, I mean, maybe that was the official story, and somebody said like they put him on the mind flare or whatever, which, you know, not spoiler alert, but like there's a little bit of foreshadowing again. But the mind flare came up in episode or whatever, season 1 of The Mandalorian, one of the last episodes, I think.
Yeah.
But again, that was Moff Gideon. Like, so he is coming back. Who the heck knows when, you know, or how, or whatever. But like, he's not gone. I think.
I do have a theory that he obviously it's not explained to us yet, but I have a theory he did escape, and he was the one to plan the bombing on Bo's castle or home, and is also behind pulling the strings of this character that we should talk about, which is I'm looking at our notes for a name. I forget.
Well, I wrote
Kane.
it down. It's Elia Kane. Elia?
Yes.
Elia
Kane.
Something like that.
I did not like her at all. And I think that was intentional in her character, but man, did she like bug the crap out of me. I think she's clearly being someone she's acting like almost like someone's pulling the strings. Like she's acting like, you know, it's for someone else's orders and stuff. And that's kind of why I think maybe Moff is pulling the strings behind all this stuff that we're seeing in you know, in front of us. I don't know. That's obviously a theory. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but
yeah. So let's dig into that for just a second. I don't know. We're getting to the point of whatever. So she convinces him little by little to leave their little like safe zone for the whatever amnesty program people. And I say safe zone. I mean, like it's as much a prison as it is a, you know, protected area or whatever. I imagine that there are a lot of members of the New Republic who would be unkind toward these people, right? So they probably need protection too. But she convinces him to leave in order to continue his work, which he knows the New Republic doesn't agree with and does not allow. So he's breaking rules in order to break another rule, in order to satisfy a higher good that he thinks that in the end maybe the New Republic could use, right? So it's one of those things where trying to do something good and still just doing something bad, or if nothing else, inadvisable. But Bree and I were talking the whole time about theories about what's really happening here, because she did not seem, you know, in season 1, season 2, can't remember how much the Elia Kane is in season 2, but like where Dr. Pershing seemed like he was sort of a he was being forced to do this, right? Like he didn't want to be in the service of the Empire. She seemed like she was kind of into this. Like she seemed like kind of all Empire, like real, like kind of evil, right? So that's why her all of a sudden being like, "Oh yeah, I'm a good guy now. Screw the Empire." Like it's sort of not very believable, right?
it didn't.
And I'm
look
sure that they
believable,
planned it
no.
that way.
Yeah.
You know, they had a soft moment where she seemed a little bit, you know, relatable. She's kind of like, I've done a lot of bad things. I just like the opportunity to like do something good, kind of, you know. And it's like, yeah, I guess, you know. But it's like, I wouldn't trust that. I wouldn't trust her ever. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, all right, cool. Let's never see each other again. Maybe like I'll find new people to hang out with. You know.
But she
got him his biscuits.
That's true. That we do see the box of biscuits at his doorstep. But she's very manipulative, because along the way they're getting to know each other, she's planting these seeds of like, hey, don't you miss your work? Don't you miss like this higher, this like vision that you had that was supposed to bring good? It's, you know, this higher version of yourself. And so in this amnesty program, you know, that's obviously they're rehabilitating these folks, and part of it is you have to go talk to a droid in like an enclosed, it's like therapy pretty much, but with a droid, and you're basically supposed to say like, these lines like I can't remember the lines exactly, but basically it's like,
Yeah,
you
like,
know,
are you having a good time? Are you having any angry thoughts? Like that kind of stuff. Yeah,
right, exactly.
yeah.
And it was interesting as his, I guess, friendship with Kane, Elia Kane, is it Elia, right?
Elia. So Elia,
Okay,
Elia.
Elia. Okay.
Whatever.
Um, as their friendship kind of grows, you can tell, and she's planting these seeds of like, hey, like, you know, we can continue your research and whatnot. He's having this like internal debate of
Yeah,
like doing this fight
juggling the
if
ethics.
it's the right thing. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's interesting when so we see him in the therapy room twice. The first time he's kind of like, you know, following the commands and whatever, and he seems like, you know, he's doing what he's supposed to. But then the second one, as this relationship's been growing,
yeah. She's getting to his head.
she's getting to his head because he's like now even tricking himself while he's talking to this like therapy droid that like whatever it takes for the New Republic, right, or something like that. Um,
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. You're crackling again. I'm sorry. Well, more technical difficulties, unfortunately, with the audio there. You're good just
yeah,
doing the. You're just going to use your laptop mic for the rest of this one?
yeah. I'll close it off with my AirPods mic. Um, I'll have to do some offline troubleshooting. I just got this mic, so it should be working, but
Yeah.
yeah, who knows? But
Yeah, but you were talking about these like therapy droids, right?
yeah, it was kind of just, I don't know at what point it started getting staticky, but basically as the relation Dr. Pershing's relationship with Elia Kane grew and she's getting into his head, you can tell the therapy sessions he's trying to like justify to
Yeah.
himself that it is worth pursuing this work, and I thought that was a pretty, you know,
Yeah.
interesting set of scenes with the therapy droids.
Yeah, his last question was very poignant. That he said something like, "Our goal here is to help the New Republic, right?" Like, and the robots is like, "Yeah," and he goes, and that supersedes everything else, right? Droid goes, "Yeah." So like, that's his like reasoning. He's like, "Okay," and like, in his mind, helping the New Republic, despite the fact that they've told him not to help them in that way, right? So,
Yep.
um, it's obviously dangerous and unethical and everything, but also he's being lured into this by this person who he can't trust, and that's I don't know. It's really frustrating to watch. Um, but so I don't know. You just want to jump ahead and oh well. First of all, man, I did want to say that Star Destroyer was so cool. I loved that
Mm.
shot. And I know that there's some of those in Jedi Fallen Order, and like every so often we get these shots of like these massive ships like downed. I remember when um, um, whatever Episode 7 came out, those shots of the Star Destroyers crashed on Jakku. Man, that was so cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I love that because you get this picture of the scale and everything, and also a sort of a it's like it reminds you that like, all right, the empire is quote unquote over. This is a new era and all that. I love that. It's great setting stuff. But yeah, so I'm going to very briefly jump over the part where I couldn't believe how easy it was to escape their little area, you know. And my other point, that why didn't the therapy droid have legs? It's just weird. Why were its hands kind of weird? They live in a galaxy where like these droids have like articulated fingers and feet and hands, and they talk like normal people and stuff like that. And for some reason, this one's bolted to the floor and has no legs. All right. So, do you have any theories about what Elia Kane's whole like thing is? What is her aim? What is she trying to do?
I mean,
Because
I don't think she's a character that is gonna be like she wants power. I think she's acting like a puppet. So I think she's, you know, I was it in Rebels, where Ezra becomes a stormtrooper or becomes a student of like the training to be a
Yeah,
stormtrooper, but he's like a spy.
yeah,
I kind of think it's one of those things where she's still, like you said, she's, it sounded like in the previous seasons that she wants to be in the Empire. Like she has this great
yeah,
motive and supports this agenda
yeah,
that it sounds like maybe she's just playing this role. Well, clearly, playing this role, and as like maybe like a spy or something. Uh, but that that might be too like I don't know. Maybe something crazier is going on. What's your
yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. No, I mean, I was sort of confused by the ending of it. Both Brie and I were kind of, I mean, we were leaning toward, all of this when I thought she was trying to lure him outside of the facility, and a group of Moff Gideon's men were going to jump him and steal him away again. Like I thought it was going to be as simple as that. And then they got all the way to the Star Destroyer, and I was like, well, maybe there's somewhere here that they're going to trap him or something. And then he stole all of his equipment, and I started to think like, okay, so maybe she's going to try to get him to continue his research for Moff Gideon, and she's going to be like sneaking the information out or something, getting it out to him somehow. Again, I think my theories all revolve around her still being his puppet, so to speak, like you said. Um, but I got sort of thrown for a loop that she's like trying to like melt his brain in the end in the mind flare, which again has been mentioned a couple of times. It's actually kind of weird. I was pretty sure that it was an old Dungeons and Dragons term when I googled it, and in fact, it is. It's from like the '70s. It was this monster, the mind flare.
Yeah, came up in
But
Stranger
anyway,
Things too.
yeah, yeah, I forgot they talked about Stranger Things. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
So they like they've got him there, and it's some sort of it's like something akin to
well, real
electroshock
quick,
therapy. Yeah,
before we talk about this scene, which is super important, uh, they go to the Star Destroyer to go
yeah,
get the supplies to then build so he can go and continue on his work cloning
yeah,
things and whatnot. They get captured at the Star Destroyer on site, and basically we see that Elia Kane like basically set him up, and that's how he
yeah,
gets captured and is now in this I don't know area where
yeah.
he's yeah
It's like a brainwashing facility or something. It's a reconditioning facility.
yeah
And I don't know. I hope that they're not trying to paint the New Republic as sort of like, oh, there's sort of ambiguous good evil thing. You know what I mean? Um, a lot of electroshock therapy stuff that happened early on, which that's what this mind flare thing I think is trying to look like, or whatever. There's certainly a parallel there. And like a lot of that was like really kind of horrible stuff that was being done to people. And so like part of me is like, all these. Do you ever see One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? It's
no
Jack Nicholson. It's really early. It's like kind of a classic. Whatever. It's a movie. It's about psychological institutes and that sort of thing. And that whatever. I don't know if that was the '60s, '70s, whatever. But anyway, they put him in this machine, and the Mon Calamari guy is like, oh no, this isn't a mind flare. We only use it for, we've had really good results and whatever. And it sounds very much like the medical jargon of people who are, giving electroshock therapy. And she gets left there by the controls, and she cranks it up in order to like torture him or melt his brain or something, right? So the impression that we got through Dr. Pershing's sort of like panicked ramblings when he was strapped down to the table. First of all, he did say like, like she set me up, like whatever, I was just trying to help and all that. But he also mentions that it's gonna like remove his like memory or something. Like he's gonna
he
he's gonna
knows the
like
machine. Yeah.
yeah. And so that sucks, right, for a scientist
Well,
and whatever. It was it
and
was not a play I expected from her. I thought she was still trying to use him, and what it feels like
yeah
is she's either trying to punish him, or like maybe there's a version of this where she's gonna put new information in, brainwash him into being more cooperative. I don't know.
yeah.
I mean, with her
Two
and
things
yeah,
on two things on the mind flare. one, there was a line as he's kind of spewing out like, "Hey, I know what this does. This erases my memory. All this stuff.
Right.
We use this in the Empire." Like he's not dumb. Uh, and the
Right.
guy's like, "Oh, but if you use it at low levels, like it's soothing, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't do much damage or whatever." But two things on that. One, that basically mean like, I mean, I guess this is kind of true with other things too, but like, why is the New Republic using like Empire tactics if you're supposed to be this like new high, for the people, freedom,
Right.
whatever, everyone's equal type thing, which there's a lot of parallels here to like obviously real life politics. Um, but then two, okay, maybe they want to like use that technology, but like maybe you would deconstruct it or whatever and like tweak it to like keeping it at those low levels. But like no, it's just the main device, and so she's able to just walk in and turn the knob to max.
Yeah.
Like why does the New Republic need that same empire like power where it's like, hey, we could just like wipe your mind? Like, are you really the
Yeah.
good guys? Like,
Yeah. And
you
so that's a lot of the same stuff that like Andor and even Rogue One is like trying to push you to ask. You know what I mean? It's like in a lot of Rogue One is people saying like, yeah, well, I did some bad stuff. You know, now I just want to make a difference for good or whatever. You know,
yeah,
I don't know. One of the things I loved about the original trilogy is this feeling like they were the good guys. You know what I mean? And there was no like, okay, Darth Vader, you know, he's torturing his dudes, he's choking people out, like, you know, he's the bad guy. I get it. You know, there's evil. I don't love the moral ambiguity. You know what I mean? Like, there's enough of that in the world right now that I'm like, man, I would much rather know who the good guys and the bad guys are in my entertainment. That
yeah,
said, I think, you know, you're absolutely right. There's this sort of question being asked. And I don't know, man. I don't know how much of this is really the New Republic. How much of it is just some crackpots at the bottom? You know what I mean? Because like, I don't know how, you know, after a coup, how long it takes for a revolutionary force to like reform a new government that works. You know, and how much control they have of everything at the, you know, the very farthest out, you know, levels and everything. Again, this is one of those things that like we're getting into real life stuff that I'm sure that there are answers to some of these things. But anyway, I don't know. I don't know if this is supposed to be a good representation of what's going on in the New Republic, but certainly they thought they were helping him, and she is, you know, on her own doing something else. And I wonder a little bit if this is like, you know, clearly she's endeared herself to the people above her. You know, she's like a
yeah,
model, you know, a model prisoner. Like they're you know, trusting her and everything. So there's a small part of me that thinks maybe all of this is for her to get a leg up in influence here and end up doing something worse, or you know, in which case maybe she'd need to silence him. I don't know, but it also seems to me like he's more valuable, like, you know, for his talents and everything. And if you wipe out his brain, I don't know. So that's a question that needs answered, man. That left it on a real weird note.
I'm sure they're gonna answer it. It's
Oh yeah, oh
too
yeah,
much
yeah,
of a
yeah. I mean,
cliffhanger.
it's they're gonna come around probably in the next episode or two. I don't know, but anyway, then we go back to Mando and Bo-Katan finally, and he takes her to the secret Mandalorian covert, and I was kind of surprised. I was like, because like I don't think she's friends with these people really, you know, but maybe she had to go because she was the witness, right? That he took a bath
Well, I
with
think
the
it's that, but
Mythosaur.
also they were just trying to escape. Remember, like they were under
Yeah,
attack,
yeah,
so he's like, "Oh, I got
yeah. It
this
was a,
place that they can't find us."
yeah. I mean, certainly it would be safe, but I'm a little surprised they weren't like, get her out of here, like immediately, you know. But
Well, you could tell there was a little hesitation
yeah,
from some of the people that were there.
yeah. Big boy Paz Vizsla, who didn't sound like John Favreau this time. Did you notice that? I said something to Brie about it. Paz Vizsla, as with Pre Vizsla in the Clone Wars, is voiced by John Favreau, and it didn't sound like him this time. So I don't know what happened, or maybe he's just doing his voice differently. I don't know. Could just be that he's too busy. Who knows? But yeah, they get in there, and he turns over the little vial of water, and sure enough, it's like, all right, you're a Mandalorian again. And Bo Katan, she's like, hey, guess what? you're a Mandalorian again too, because you haven't taken your helmet off yet. And she's like, I mean, you wrote it down. Bo-Katan accidentally joins the cult. I love that. But it was like, it really is. I mean, I remember thinking, why didn't she take her helmet off after she got out of the water? And I don't want to jump to conclusions, but my going theory is that she's becoming a believer a little bit, you know, not necessarily at the like Mando level, like religious zealot yet, but maybe she's starting to lean into this, and maybe she's starting to see, you know, again, Din's religious fervor, his like, you know, commitment to the creed and all that sort of thing. And then this like weird appearance of this like mythical sort of religious figure of the mythosaur, you know, it's like, I think there's part of me that thinks she's coming around, you know, which is funny because I'd really sort of hoped it'd be the other way around, that Din would leave the cult, join with Bo and the other, like what I would call normal Mandalorians, take his helmet off and just be a normal dude for a while. But I guess he's sticking with the way. So I don't know, man. I thought that was kind of crazy, and also like, I bet it's pretty cool for Bo-Katan to have like Mandalorians around her who like having her around. You know, they're more of a family clearly than these other Mandalorians are, who are all, you know, as she said in the first episode of this season, they're off like doing their mercenary thing again because they just kind of, you know, the Darksaber, so who cares about you? And here she finds a bunch of people who are like, hey man, you're one of us as long as you don't take that helmet off. Weird, but like, all right, man. You sometimes you get the family you get, you know. So
it's so funny. I wish, you know, I wish you could see. I could picture her face, you know, her facial reactions to when, you know, she was like, "Oh, by the way, you're one of us now."
Yeah,
I can imagine like her
it
scuffing or
was even kind of cool. It was even kind of cool how she phrased it too, because it was like, you know, you're welcome to leave whenever you want, but as long as you keep your helmet on, you're one of us now. And everybody's like patting her on the back. It's like, oh, it was almost like a sweet moment. And like, in many ways, I've come to think of the armor and her followers as like real weirdos, real creeps, you know. But I don't know, man. Maybe that is sort of the way the Mandalorians were meant to be. I had always sort of thought, when the first season came out of The Mandalorian, I thought that maybe the whole helmet thing was about, until we retake our planet and get ourselves back in control and take our seat as the rulers and whatever, like until then, it is a shame to show our faces. Like that's sort of what I assumed like they were doing. But in fact, it was this sort of like offshoot of the Death Watch cult, you know? And so it's these people who are just, I guess, wearing their helmets until they die. I don't know.
Well, they could take it off in privacy. Man.
Yeah, I mean, so what happens? I mean, what happens if you get married? You know, you're not allowed to see your spouse's face. Is there no marriage in Mandalorian culture?
Guess not.
Do they only adopt? We know that they're crazy about adoption, right? But like, do they only adopt?
That's a good point, though. Like, how do you like? I mean, there's kids, right? Like in the second episode, the opening shot is a kid Mandalorian, so it's like, well, again, this kid has to exist somehow.
Yeah, I mean, but he's probably just like Din, you know what I mean? That like they just scooped him up off of some planet when his parents got murdered. You know?
I guess, yeah. I don't know. I feel like
we don't know anything. We don't know anything about that. It's very possible they talked about it somewhere. I haven't heard anything about that. This whole like, you know, the people of the way or whatever they call themselves. It's something that I think was invented for the Mandalorian, so it can't be any older than that. All these little details that they're coming up with. So maybe there are books and comics, something about it. I don't know. But shoot, man, that's all I got.
Yeah, that's how it ended. So
it was not to me the exciting episode that the last one was, but it sure opened like a million doors to places that I don't know where they're going to lead. You know, which is
I think
more exciting than a bummer, but certainly a little of both.
I think it developed more of a villain at play that I'm a little spooked at, you know, whereas before I didn't feel like I was getting that as much.
Right.
And so it was a non-traditional episode, but it was really surprising.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that villain, whatever, whoever the true villain is, because I think we both agree that she's just sort of the arm, she's the puppet, whatever, you know. But like that's going to be interesting to see that revealed. Whether it's Moff Gideon, whether it's Grand Admiral Thrawn, whether it's some new character, whether it's and a lot of people are talking about this cloning thing, and we talked about it a little bit ourselves, but it's probably going to connect to Emperor Palpatine. Spoilers for The Rise of Skywalker.
Okay. I did have something in my notes that I forgot. You mentioned it with the cloning stuff. I think this is just again a wild theory, but I think it's not impossible that the clones that they end up making, or if they make one, ends up being Snoke. We don't know Snoke's origin. We never found that out.
Well,
he kind of looks clonish, right?
Bree caught me one time, and I had said the same thing. And she Googled it, and she found it somewhere on the internet that apparently in a book somewhere they confirmed that that Snoke and all the other like monstrosities you see in like giant test tubes in Rise of Skywalker are in fact clones of Palpatine.
Yeah, but it's a book. Which doesn't count.
Yeah, man, I know. I kind of wish I could. I kind of wish I felt the same way. I do feel the same way. I wish that others felt the same way.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they said something in a book, I guess I have to go, okay. That said, I don't know. I'm guessing that there will be a connection eventually, whether it's this direct of a thing, or if it's just kind of like a, like a little wink, just down the line, and then they move on. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think some sort of experimental clone will happen at some point. And I guess it could be just like a new character, but yeah. Well, I guess we can end on that note, and hopefully next time I'll have my mic stuff all figured out.
Yeah, we'll get it. All right. Well, I'm Nate, and this is Colin, and you just watched Pew Pew Time.